Okay. Good morning, guys. Well, today we're going to be having a look at CSS. Now, let me just confirm something now. Are you guys already familiar with HTML? Like, you are very comfortable with it? Yeah, you can respond in the comment section. Okay, cool. Well, now we are going to dive into CSS. Oh, we have people arriving here. Yeah, cool. Okay. Well, let's just kick it off. I think I'm going to, let me just, sorry, my font size is really small. That's how I like it. Let me just increase it to 18. Yay. Or even bigger. 22, 24. Cool. Right. Okay. I'm guessing you all can see this, so I'll just begin. Okay. Let's just delete this. Okay, here. Well, I'm just going to do a quick recap anyway, even though you guys are already familiar with HTML. HTML has a very simple structure. It has a HTML element which contains every other thing, and it also has, inside the HTML are two tags, the head tag and the body tag. So everything inside the body now is what is going to be showing inside our page. So most of the editing we are going to do will be inside the body. And this line of code right here is for linking external CSS. In the same way, we could also link JavaScript too, but for the purposes of this lesson, we are just going to be linking CSS. Okay, I'm just going to make a new file. Let's just say, sorry about that. Okay, and here I'm just going to list out everything that we're going to be going over for today. Okay, first of all, we're going to talk about first thing we're going to talk about selectors, and secondly specificity.
Sorry, I missed the first 2 days of this.
Oh, wait, let me just respond to that. Who said that just now? Chukwuebuka, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that means you are not, let me just confirm, you are not familiar with HTML.
I'm not.
Oh, this class is supposed to be a CSS class, but guys, I hope you don't mind. I'll just do a quick recap for him so he will just be able to follow what you're doing. Just maybe 5 minutes. So Chukwuebuka, I will need you to play really close attention to what I'm doing. Is that okay?
All right. Yeah.
Okay, because I needed your
Yeah, it's
permission.
okay. I just dropped the link for the new tools that was uploaded yesterday. You could also take a look at it later.
Okay, yeah. You can also take a look at this board. So I will just give you a quick how do I put it? I'll just give you a quick rundown, you understand, of the basic structure for HTML. So what we are doing wouldn't seem alien at all to you. Now HTML just consists of some basic things. Tags. Let's say you have a baby tag. Now you create HTML elements like this. You use angle brackets. So this first portion now is an opening tag. As you can see, it only has text enclosed between the angled brackets, but the closing tag always has slash, that is this forward slash on it. There are exceptions to this rule, of course. Like there are some elements like image tag that don't actually have closing tags, but I just want you to understand the fact that these are called tags, elements. You understand? And there's one other thing you need to know to be able to follow in this class. They are called attributes, HTML attributes. For example, there is an element called, okay, let me just use that image for example. My editor gives me code completion, but I won't rely on that. Okay, for example, now this tag now is for adding an image to your page, and as you can see, there is something I wrote here, src. These are called attributes. We are also going to look at some of these things when styling our code in CSS. Now, these attributes allows you to attach specific, how do I put them, instructions, or yeah, I call them instructions to your code. Like these src attributes now tells the image tag where to add the image. For example, if we had an image here in this folder, and that image was named something like maybe logo.png, if we just put inside here logo.png, it will load that logo file inside this image tag that is in place of it. The same thing applies for the other elements like video tag. So basically the attribute allows you a certain level of control. There is also, I think, image tag also has a width attribute. Yeah, so you can use it to specify the width of the image, and also a height attribute. You can use it to specify the height of the image. Then there is also the style attribute, which allows you to write CSS code, which is actually the major focus for today. So I just want you to understand these two things, HTML tags and attributes. Just those two things and we'll be good to go. If you need more information, you can just check out the video that Kelly dropped on the chat section, and you can just go through it and bring you up to speed. This video is also being recorded, so we will upload it at the end of this meeting in case you need to go over it again. Now, onto what I was saying before, I'm going to list out the areas that we're going to cover today. Okay, so I said with selectors, specificity, okay, then another thing that is really important, the CSS box model. After the CSS box model, I think one other area that we need to cover would be width and text alignment. Okay, then rules, properties. Please do know that these things I'm writing here are not necessarily to be taken in this order. I'm just writing them randomly. Okay, then we'll look at a property of CSS called inheritance. Okay, then type selectors. I just hope we have enough time to cover all these things today. We only have 2 hours, but less than I would say 1 hour and 45 minutes or so. Okay. Okay. There's classes. Okay, these are the areas that we're going to be covering for today. You guys just give me a second. I need to get something. these are the topics that we're going to be covering for today. So, Kelly, please can you just respond? Let me just confirm if you guys are hearing me. I just posted them on the
Yeah,
chat
yeah, we
section.
can hear you.
I
Okay,
can hear you.
okay, yeah, cool. So we're going to be starting with okay, then we're going to be starting off with selectors. Now, let me just write some HTML code. Let's see, we have a form, and inside this form now we have maybe an input. Okay. Placeholder is Sean. Okay. Then there's an attribute for HTML called ID. So let's just say this ID now is sorry. The ID for this element, let's just assign it the username ID. Then there should be another, well, let me just copy and paste my favorite thing. Okay. Then the type of input field will be the password field, then the ID will be password. Okay, now this the CSS file, which is style.css, is already linked to this HTML, so we don't really need to do much. Now let me just write some test styles here. Okay, for example, now a CSS selector basically is something that you use to, as the name implies, select elements that you want to style. Now the basic structure for CSS is like, it goes like this. Okay, wait. Okay, let me just use curly braces. Just ignore the curly braces. There is a selector. Alright. Then you have curly braces. Then there is a rule and the value. Just remember, let me just comment this stuff out. Just remember this basic structure now. CSS has selector. I think I should just surround this with square brackets instead so it doesn't get, or let me just use normal brackets since I don't think we use this too much. Okay, yeah. There's a selector. Then after using the selector, you have to put curly braces. Then inside that curly braces, you define your rules like this. So I just want this to be at the top of the file, so we'll all follow along. So like this now, basically you could have multiple rules. Let me explain that to you guys. Okay, now this CSS file is already linked to the HTML, and let me just say, for example, I wanted to style this body element here, this body. In order to do that, I need to tell the CSS code which element I'm trying to select, and that is the body element. So I just do write body and this curly braces. Then inside here is where I'm going to write the styles that will apply to that body. So for example, let's say I wanted to give that body a background color. Or before I do that, let me just open the page. I'm using an extension in VS Code called Live Server. Yeah, this is it. So I'm using this extension Live Server, and it allows me to serve my HTML code. And the beauty of it is anytime I save the file, it automatically reloads. So it has already started the page for us. So all we have to do is just come here and shift. Okay, okay. So 5500, I think that was the port. Yeah, cool. So as you can see, I think I'm just going to open this in a separate tab so you can equally see what we are doing here. Yeah, are you guys okay with this? Are you guys seeing this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for example now, let me just show you guys the live reload feature of this stuff. So let's say, okay, for the username now, the placeholder was EG John. Let me just add do. Then I press Ctrl S to save, and immediately, as you can see, it's appearing here. Cool, right? I mean, the extension is really good. I can't imagine myself pressing Ctrl S every time I'm saving something. So this is an element. This is an example of a CSS selector in action. The body selector has already been used. Then inside that body selector, we are going to write our rules. Like I said here, we could have, okay, rule 1, then value 1, rule 2, value 2, and so on and so forth. If you know this, then I think you are good to go for CSS. It's like the basic structure of almost all CSS styles. The only thing now that would change are the selectors. There are different ways to use selectors. I'm going to go into that in a moment. So for example, now I wanted to style the body tag. I want to add a background color property. And okay, our text editor already gives us autocomplete background color. Then let me just select something like black because it will be conspicuous. Ctrl S. So you see, immediately I just saved, it changed the background color to black, maybe change it to something else, and voila, it has changed it. Now this is a selector. The body tag is the selector. After defining your selector, which tells the code which elements in particular you want to apply the styles to, then you have to write your rule set between the curly braces. Now the reason why these things are called selectors is, as I've explained before, they select something, but it is much more than that. For example, you could want to apply a particular style to different types of elements on your page, but those elements are related in a particular way. So if you use the right selector, if you choose the right selector, you can apply those styles to all the elements at once instead of selecting them one by one and adding the styles. Okay, I think that does it for selecting. I'll keep asking questions as I'm going. You guys understand what selectors are, or if there's any questions you have, just let me know at any time. I will answer. Hello? Hello,
Yeah, we can hear
guys.
you.
Okay.
We're here.
Okay. Does anybody have any question? Do you understand selectors so far? Chukwuebuka, do you understand?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Let's move on. Okay. Now, there's something I will need to explain here. It's called the CSS box model. In order to do that, I'll have to search for something. Okay, I'll give you guys a very good tool to use, although I'm sure most of you would have heard of it before. W3 School. So let me just check their box model. Okay, cool. Now, this is what I wanted you guys to see. Now, the CSS box model is like this. Now, we have, okay, let me just start by saying that everything in your page is a box, like every single thing. Now, in order to prove that to you, let me maximize this then. I'll just open up my inspector and show you everything how it is. Now, on your inspector, you could just click this button here to select an element to install, to inspect. Anytime you hover over that element, it will highlight the element. Then if you click, you can now start modifying the CSS of the element. I haven't write JavaScript on this side, so let me just click that as I'm moving now. From this home item, you can see, if you look closely, you see that it's actually a box. Let me just keep moving. You see that everything is a box. The only thing that changes is just their length and breadth ratio. So it might be a square, it might be a rectangle, but it will definitely be a box. CSS. Even the text itself is a box. I hope you guys can see this. So this, you keep going, and all these little boxes now are being contained in a larger box here, which is the, let me see if I can highlight and bring that out, which is the navigation bar. Okay, let's just leave that one for now. See the CSS box model. This one too is a box. This one too is a box. So I think I've proven my point. Even the okay, look at this element now, that this Facebook icon that is curved a bit around the edges, still a box. So everything in a HTML page, in your web page, is actually a box, no matter how curved shape looks. Now the CSS box model gives us an explanation of how things work under the hood. Now, for every element, you have the content. For example, now a simple text element. For example, this text here that they wrote in the CSS box model. Now, there is a box surrounding the content. So, for this CSS box model, now just imagine that there is a box surrounding this whole CSS box model. Now, there is padding. Now, basically what padding is now, as I said, there is a box surrounding the CSS box model. There is also another box containing the box surrounding the CSS box model. So there is a box, a larger box containing this text called the CSS box model. Padding is a property that defines the amount of space between the content and the main box itself. Okay, I'll take that again. Padding is a measurement of the space between the content and the walls of the box that contains that content. So if you increase padding on, let's say, the text element, you will be increasing the space between the borders of that element and the walls of the box. Now, let me just demonstrate that real quickly. Sorry guys if I'm going to be very fast with this. Okay, let's say we have a div element. Then inside that div we just had let me just say a p tag, then lorem some texts. Yeah, what lorem some is just placeholder text for that developers like using. So I don't even know what it means anyway. I think it's Latin. Yeah. Okay. So inside this div now we have. So let me just save it and show up on the board. Okay, this is it. So I want to start this div now. Okay, let me not use advanced selector CSS. Let me just write div. I want to start this div now. Okay, just see width. Let me just define the width of the, let's see, 300 pixels. Save. Yeah, then I'll give it a background property so you can actually visualize what we are doing. Background color, let me set it to white. Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. Now, as you guys can see, the how do I put this now? Wait, let me reduce the width of this stuff. Okay, the distance between the text on the body and the box surrounding the text is too small, and this isn't ideal. If you visit many web pages, you will notice that the box isn't really touching the walls of the container. So that is where padding comes in. So let me just put this padding property, and I set it something like, let's say, let's just go really high, 50 pixels, and I save. As you can see here, the distance between the text now and the body of the content surrounding that is containing the text is very, very high, 50 pixels specifically. So let's just reduce that. I'm guessing that amount is too much. Let me just make it 10 pixels. So no, let's go 20. Okay, cool. So as you can see now, this is, well, it's a bit more presentable. I think we should go lower, 15 pixels. Okay, yeah. So this is a bit more presentable as compared to, let me comment it out, as compared to this, where it's just touching the box, looking like something that will fall out at any time. So this is a bit more presentable. Now, that is padding. Now I hope you guys understand, but I'll just be moving fast because we're almost 20 minutes before 1 hour will be exhausted. Okay, so that is the padding property. So it defines the space between the content itself and the body of the box containing the content. So now there's another property. Let me just talk about margin. Now margin does one thing. Okay, let me duplicate this thing I just created here. I'll just copy this code and put it under and save, so it should reflect. Okay. Okay, yeah. Now let me just explain something now. I know you guys are wondering. I just copied this element here, pasted it under, and it's already showing the same styles as this one. Now the reason is this selector called I just used div. I'm basically telling the browser, hey, look for any elements that is a div element and apply these styles to it. So if you have 100 divs on this page, it will look for every single one of them and apply this style to it. I will explain how to apply more specific groups after just this example. Now, what I'm currently explaining margin property. Now, this box now, let me just maximize this and show it to you guys. Okay, now using the inspector, there are two boxes here. Now, okay, as you can see, this particular element is the first div. The first div spans the whole, as in it spans the entirety of the width of the page. Now the reason why it does that is it is what we call a block level element. Block level elements are things like h1 tag, h1 element. Let me just call it element, not tag. H1 element, key element, and a couple other elements. They are elements that occupy the entirety of the width of that particular screen. We can actually make block level elements to become inline elements. So inline means they won't occupy the whole space that there is. They will actually allow others to come to this side. So in order to do that, let me just say I think it's the display property. Then we have to set it to make something like inline dash flex. Okay. Well, as you can see, the element automatically came to this side, so it's no longer occupying the entirety of the width. It actually allowed the other guy to say, hey guys, space will come stay here. Cool. Okay, so we have established this. Now the margin property, what it does is it defines, like now by comparison, I said padding defines the amount of space between the content itself and the box containing it. Now margin defines the space between the exterior of the box. See the line I'm moving? The exterior of the whole box and surrounding content. So if the margin is, let's say, 10 pixels, now that no element in the whole of that page should be able to come less than 10 pixels of this element here. For example, now let me just write small code to demonstrate this stuff. Now let's say in this div now I'm applying a margin property of, sorry, let me just write it below. Well, doesn't matter, but I like writing my own like that. So margin, let's say we are using, let me just use something big so you guys see noticeable changes. 50 pixels. Then I just say, oh, would you look at that? So what it did here was to give it 50 pixels. So basically now, as I explained before, this style is applying to all the divs on this page. So it applies to this and applies to this. The distance between this point and this wall is 50 pixels. Then the distance between these two is 100 pixels. Please, can anybody tell me why?
50 plus 50.
Exactly. Thank you. So 50, 50. So their margin now are pushing each other apart. So nothing is going to be able to come closer than 50 pixels of each of them. And that includes even another element's margin cannot enter. So the top margin too is also 50, the distance between here and here. So all around it's 50. And as you can see, even this bottom input fields that were touching it before I have already become 50 pixels farther from it rather. So, well, that proves the point. Let me just go back to this. Let's just reduce the margin to something reasonable. Let's say 10 pixels. Cool. Now, you guys understand margin. I'll take it. So, let me now move on to border. Now, the border property. Let me small thing now. Let me remove this. Let me just comment out this background color stuff. So the background color becomes white again, which is default. Okay, now border. Okay, border is just well, as you can see, it's in between the padding and the margin. It's just a particular field that surrounds the content. We can actually define the width of the border and the color. There are actually a lot of wonderful designs that you can make with border, but I'm just going to explain the basic ones. Okay, wait, let me just check something. Why it? Okay, so in order to add a border property, well, you guessed it, we just have to write border. Okay. Oh, as you can see, there are a lot of things here. Okay. Now, our editor already gives us completion. So basically, the first thing to do, all these things are shortcuts. I will explain in a moment. Now, the first thing to do is to actually select the color for your border. Let's say black. Then you now select the width of your border. Let's say something like 5 pixels. Okay. Well, I don't know why it's not showing, but let me do it the way I know. Okay. First of all, let's just use the border width property to set the width of the border. Let's just say the width of the border is going to be, let me use something big again so that it will be noticeable. 50 pixels. Then the border's color. Border color. Let's say it will be black. Okay. But to, I think I might have some conflicting styles here. You guys just give me a moment. Okay. Let me just remove this background property first of all. Background color property, sorry. Okay. Okay, yeah, I think one thing I was forgetting was border dash. I think it should be style. Yeah, cool. Okay, yeah, okay. As you can see, I've resolved that little edge. Now, that is actually how to do this whole thing now was this first one. Now, let me comment out these 3 lines. Let me comment them out and see if I can actually get that one right again. This whole thing now is just, is a shortcut, sha. So first of all, you define, I think the first thing that should go here would be the style, which the border style that you want to use, solid. Second thing would be the color. And the third thing should be the, let's say, width, the border. Yeah, so this is it. It's a shortcut, but well, if you want to use the shortcut, you memorize it. But the 3 things that you actually need to set your border property are these. Let me comment them out. Okay, so first of all, I'll move them, I'll put them in order of priority. First of all, the first thing you need is to set the border style. Now, if you just look at this autocomplete, we have a lot of styles for border. The one we used was solid. Now, let's just use something like, let's use dotted. As the name implied, it's a dotted design. Okay, that doesn't show it well. Let me just use 5 pixels. Cool. So this is it, the dotted border. As you can see, this stuff looks it looks great, right? So we can actually choose a lot of other designs to use. Let's just check out some of them. Roof. Oh, that one didn't apply it. Okay, double. As you can see, great. Okay, that is great. What else? Dashed. Okay, now you guys are already seen the border stuff. So let me just set it back to solid. Now, apart from this these three border properties I just showed you, there are additional properties that you can actually use with border, which is like, for example, there is the border radius. So this is actually how border radius works. Border radius just adds how do I put it, a curve around the edges, these sharp edges. Now each element is a box, like I told you, and boxes have four edges, except you're talking three-dimensional. They have four edges. So basically what it does is it puts a curve around at the edge of that box. It doesn't actually curve the box, rather, but it just applies a curve and says, okay, things will not be able to get past this curve. Now let me just show you what I mean. I'll just use 10 pixels, and as you can see, the edges of the box has curved. So if I apply something like, let's say 13, or let me just say 50 now, so you see it's curving even more and more. Now this border radius property, well, it's a little bit important. Let me just put it like that, because for example, if you have come across images on the net that are actually round, they actually use the border radius property for them in order to make them round. Let me just give you guys an example. Let's just go to unsplash.com and get an image to use. So okay, let's just download the first image. I see. No, I don't think we need to download this anyhow. Let me just copy the image address. Go on here, and let me just define it at the bottom. Image. Then inside the SRC, I just put the URL for the image and save. So it should show up here. Cool. Now this is the image. Okay. Now if you have been following, then you should know I can just style that image directly by just calling the image selector. Then let me just define the width of the image. Let's say 50 pixels. Yeah, because I want it to be really small. Then the height will be 50 pixels. So okay. Oh, that is like really small. Oh, okay. Let me just increase it small. 150. 150. Okay. Yeah. Now, so let me just explain to you what I mean by the border radius property can make things circular. So I will just add that border radius property here. Okay, so let's just start off with 10 pixels. Just monitor the edges of the image while I see it. Okay, as you can see, the image is slightly curved around here, but what happens if we keep increasing this? Let's just set it to like 1000. Voila, you have a circular image. So this is actually how they create circular images on the net. There might be other ways to do it, I don't know, but this is just the way I know. So I think for now we have covered selectors. Okay, let me just put an X close to everything we have covered. CSS box model. Cool. Okay, now what we are going to do is Well, let me just explain the width and text alignment of the thing. Now, okay, I don't think I really need to explain width because I just did that with this image here. So you saw how I set the width of the image. I can also, okay. I could also set the width to something like, well, 1000. And as you can see, it has already spanned that with 1000 pixels. So that is width. Now, text alignment. Oh, now this text that is inside this div here, we could actually apply styles to the text that are inside the div. For example, there's a color property that will actually define the color of text inside the div. So let me just put blue. Well, as you can see, the color of the text has already turned to blue. So text dash align. Okay, let's just align it to, let's see, the left for starters. Give it. Okay. Hello, are you guys following? Yeah, I'll just be asking this in every 10 minutes. Let me know if my network has disappointed me. Can anyone respond?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah. Well, basically, text alignment in CSS is done with the text align property. So, text align property can be used to align the text inside a block element. So, you could align text in different ways. There's the, as you can see from autocomplete, you could align it to the right, start, inherit, initial, onset, center, end. You could justify it. There are different ways. This actually reminds me of CSS flexbox, but I don't know if we are going to, well, I don't think we are going to be able to do it today, but let me just add it here. Okay, that one is a bit of an advanced topic. Okay. Now, okay, let's move on to inheritance. Now, okay, we have already covered rules and properties. So inheritance. If you guys have any question, I just feel you need to say this. Just feel free to interrupt me at any time. Yeah. So inheritance. Now, cool. What inheritance does is it's like the name implies, it allows elements to, that is child elements, to inherit the styles from the parent elements. Now, I will explain what I mean in a second. Yeah, sorry about that. I have to respond to somebody. Okay, now what it means is this. For example, let me just, I don't know, let me, okay, let's remove this property here, this color. Now, there is a selector for selecting everything on the page, and I mean everything, for styling everything, and the selector is star. So we just use that star and do this. Then let's just say color. Let me just say the color property to blue. Okay, you just saw this, right? It applied the blue property. Hello, I need you guys to respond. I think my network is acting up. Yeah? Is anyone hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. So basically what inheritance is I just apply this color attribute to I mean sorry the color rule to this star, which this star selector encompasses the whole element in the page. Now I don't need to I don't need to come here now, which is this div, and start defining the color attribute again. It automatically inherits the color from the parent element, but let's just say I wanted to give it its own color. Red, okay, let's structure out something else. Okay, um, cool. Okay, we have this div box here. Then I just give it an ID of text because I need to select it specifically. Now I'll just come here at the bottom here, then I'll just define div, okay, hash text. Okay, I think I never really explained this before, so I'm just going to go ahead and explain it now. This is a type of CSS selector. I'm going into them later on. This selector now, hash, indicates, okay, look for an element on the page that has the ID text, that has its ID attributes, which is this ID is equals to text. So you are basically telling it to look for any elements that has this ID. Let me not say any one, because the ID attribute can only be used by one element on that page. If you use it on multiple elements, you get an error. So look for any element that has the ID of text and apply the following styles to it. So um, let me remove this super text, this super style here, and save. Okay, then I just say apply color to be dark blue. Cool. Now this is basically what inheritance means. Now I apply this style here to this div element, right? I look for the div box, applied, and I applied the color blue to the div element. Now, if there was text here, for example, now as you can see, that text that I just wrote has that blue color. In other words, it has the color property. But when I did that, these two p tags that are under here automatically receives the color, the style, that is the color property from the parent element. That is what we call inheritance. Now I would like you to take note that not all properties can actually be inherited. Like some properties, like I think background image property. So there's actually a style, there's actually a property for setting your background image. Then, well, let me just use this as reference. If you want to set a background image with CSS, then you have to set the URL. Then this URL now contains a string, so it could point to whatever. Wait, I think I still have that stuff I copied. Let me just put it. Okay, so cool. And save. Okay, as you can see now, the background of the box has already changed to that image, but it's not really showing well. So there's another property called background size, which actually sets the size for your this. So I'll just set it to cover. Okay, and it's showing better now. So as you can see, that is for setting background image and background size and whatever. Okay, basically that is actually what inheritance means. So if you have a parent element now, and you applied some styles to it. Provided that those styles can be inherited, any other subsequent elements that are inside it, so child elements, would have those styles. Now let me just tell something and show you guys. Let's say we have a div here again, and inside this div now we now have, let's just say another p tag, and you just write some text again, save. Now as you can see, the div, that is the text inside, still acquires that style. Now okay, let me now see if we can actually apply this. So style, this style attribute, like I said before, we can actually use it to write our CSS inside the HTML. So I just want to set the color property to, let's say, red. Okay, cool. As you can see, it changed. So this is one way of overriding you can actually override inherited styles. So for example, if you wanted to specify it explicitly that, okay, this element to inherit, yeah, anyone want to say anything? Hello. Okay, let's continue then. As I was saying, so if you wanted to define the styles, then you can actually, instead of putting, if we had a child element, for example, now let's just use one random selector and define it. Then we just say the color property. We could actually use their keywords inherit initial. So we could actually use inherit here to tell it that, okay, inherit from your parent element that particular property, which is color. So it's actually possible. And I think that is it for inheritance. Classes, cool. Well, I think I'm just going to take this specificity for now. Okay, so in CSS, specificity is the means that allows browser to decide which CSS properties are most relevant to any element. So basically, they use it to match rules that are composed of different types of CSS selectors. Now, I'm going to explain how that works in a moment. Okay, so for example, in CSS, let me just show you guys a peculiar behavior. For example, now let's just say we have h1 element here. Then inside this h1, we just show something. Say DSC. This showing where? Oh, it's not. Okay, just say DSC is the best. Cool. Okay, we have this here. Now, then inside this style.css, now we just came down and wrote, we want to style the h1 element. We just write h1, then we now wrote our style. Let's see, you see the color of this element will be blonde green, right? Now, as you can see, the color of the text has already changed appropriately to blonde green. Now, if we come under and define the same attributes here, color, then we set it something else. So you see, the color actually changed to light coral. What this demonstrates to us is that the styles that are under, if they apply the same property to the same selector, the one that is below will actually be chosen more. Okay. There's a way CSS calculates this specificity, so it assigns values. So I won't go into much detail for it, but it assigns values to the attributes that you selected. Sorry, the styles that you selected. So if you use a selector and those selectors are conflicting, for example, now let's say you use a selector like div -a. So what it's saying is, look for the div tag that has an ID of a, then you now put you now put styles inside. Then you now did something like, you now wrote hash A again. That is any element that has ID of A. Then you now did this again, div, sorry, div. Then you now do something like ID is equals to A. Understand? Now, what this means is, these styles now should be conflicting because they should be applying to different elements. Now, CSS has a way of computing the values, so it assigns values to the most relevant um, item, then it applies them at the end of it all. So let's say you have an item now that fits into these three criteria. It will now assign values for the most relevant style. Then let's say this one now comes out on top. That is the one that is going to give it. So that is CSS specificity in a nutshell. And we are going to, I just did something now which actually provides for us a smooth transition to the next topic. So, and that is, let's just say advanced selectors. Now, what advanced selectors actually are, they are, okay, they provide for us ways to select elements. They are still selectors, but they give us more control over how we select our stuff. For example, now, basically, I've just been calling H1, the H1 attribute, understand? And what this does is it applies that to any H1, as it doesn't matter which one it is. If I have 100 H1s in my HTML file, so apply these styles to all of them. And in most cases, you actually don't want that. This hash now is for ID. So let me just demonstrate a few. This image now is for any image element at all. So, but most times you don't actually want that. We want something that gives us more control. So let me just explain one more thing before I move into the advanced selectors, like how to style class element. Now let me just say this H1 now has a class of, okay, H1. No, I just call it heading, or sorry, heading. Okay, so now we have already, one way to style that stuff is to use H1, because let's face it, it's a H1 element, so we can just write our styles and it will affect it. But we don't want to do that. I want to show you guys how to use the class selector. So in order to use the class selector, it's very simple. You just precede the name of the class. Now, the name of the class in this case is heading, right? So heading, that's the name of the class. You just precede it with dots, and that is all. By doing this now, it looks for any element that has this the class heading and applies the styles that are written between these curly braces to it. So now the reason why classes are important is now we have, I told you guys about ID. The ID attributes can only be applied to one, but class allows you to apply a particular style to a wide variety of elements. Like, let's say we have buttons on our page and all of them are, very similar, and we want to apply a particular type of style, to all of them. We want that particular style to apply to all of them. Instead of doing it individually for each element, assign all of them a particular class and apply our styles to that class. If you move further and you start using maybe a framework like Bootstrap, then you notice that majority of what provides Bootstrap's functionality is classes. They have predefined classes for what you want, like a button styles now have already been defined inside, let's say BTN class, for example. Then the only thing you have to do is when you create your button, for instance, let's just say you create button, you just have to come here now and add the class, then BTN. Then maybe let's say you want to apply color, let's say BTN dash success. This now adds green color. So basically what I'm saying is the classes, for example, if you go to the Bootstrap file, you see that the class BTN already has styles that define how buttons are supposed to show. The margin, they already defined the margin, the width, the outline, everything. Then BTN success now is a class that adds green background property to a button element. So all this now allows us, let's say we want multiple buttons now to have the same multiple buttons. Yeah, well, we want multiple buttons to have the same style. We just define those buttons, then apply that class to it, and immediately they have that particular style across all of them. So instead, let's just write a style here. Let's just use color, which is the easiest to notice. We just say, okay, let me notice that again. Let's just say light gray. Cool. As you can see, the color change. We can actually apply another property. Let's say font size. Sorry about that, guys. Let's say font family. Let me just use my favorites. Oh, it's not here. Oh, anyhow, I wanted to use Ubuntu, but let me just apply something like this. Font family and font size. There are actually a lot of CSS rules. You just have to check. Like I provided the link W3 schools. If you go there, you check the list of attributes and you play with it. I don't even think we're able to cover CSS animation in this course, but just the basics should be enough for you guys. So font size, let me just make something like 50 pixels and save. So you see now, the size has increased 100. No, sorry, 1000 would have occupied the whole screen. So as you can see, this is CSS class at work, but it's not yet complete. Now in order to explain it, let me not use h1 tag in this case. Let me just use a p element and just show this is a p element. So I'll save. Okay, and where is our p hiding? Under the image. Let me remove the image first. Oh, let me comment it out. Okay, this is our p element. Now in this p element, now let me just assign its class to this heading which we have already defined. So heading. Cool. So as you can see, the style that we wrote here, just this one style applied to this h1 applied to the p element. So the only difference, the only reason why this one is bold is because it's a h1 tag. So we could also change that one to change the font weight, reduce it, make it something like that. So there are a lot of properties that we can use to do that. You can just read up on it, properties for styling text. So, but what I wanted to demonstrate, I hope it's clear now. The class allows you to define styles. Like if they were explaining classes to you in HTML, it wouldn't really make much sense without CSS. So that class now allows CSS to style multiple, give similar styles to multiple elements. So now that is it for styles. The main thing we are talking about right now is advanced selectors. So an example of an advanced selector is okay, let me just give you an example. Instead of using this this dot heading, I'll copy the style themselves. Now there are different types of advanced selectors, but I'll starting you guys off with one called the attribute selector. So the attribute selector allows us to style elements that has a particular attribute. Like I said before, this, for example, this class now is an attribute. Understand? If you guys go further into maybe JavaScript, you see ways for actually creating attributes. I can just create an attribute called Buhari attribute is equals to something. That is in JavaScript, but we have not gotten there yet. So we can actually create attributes, but I just want you to understand that these are attributes. Something like class is equals to this. In this input field now, type is equals to text. It's an attribute. It tells the HTML that, oh, look at this box, so should hold text. We can also define it to be a date, for example, a date type. So let's just save. And as you can see, this place will change. So now we can actually select date. You understand? We can change it to basically a lot of things. So for now, I just using text. Text attribute. So what I want to show you now is this attribute selector. So we just do, let's say okay, the h1 element, for example, that has an attribute of, let's say, class is equals to heading. I don't know if it will work without string, but let me just test it first. Okay, let's test. I say color is red. Okay, it worked. Let me change it. Let me see if it works with string. Okay, it still works. Remove H1. See, cool. Now, so you guys are seeing this thing. Now, what this thing means is, as you can see, this style applied to both of them. This is an attribute selector. We use square bracket as they're called. Then write the attributes that you want this the CSS to look for. For example, that type now, you could just say, okay, any element that has the type, that is a text field, any element that have type is equals to text. Okay, give it this particular bunch of stars and writing. Let me just set the color to something like maroon. Yeah, so see, it did not. Okay, I think it will. Okay, yeah, it applied. Just that you won't see it until. Let me use something more conspicuous. With see 50. Let's say 20%. Okay. Oh, let me also do it a bit. Height. Sorry. Height. Say them like 30 pixels. Okay, as you can see, the height of this box increased, meaning that the style that we wrote here is actually affecting it. Because why? The type, this element is the only element on this page that has the type attribute equal to text. So this is an attribute selector. We also have group selectors. Now group selectors are, it's really easy actually. You just use comma to indicate that okay, there are multiple elements here. For example, now let me save this and reload, so the page reloads. As you can see, this is a H1 element, this is a P element, right? Cool. And it doesn't have they don't have color. So if I wanted to use the group selector, I just create one. Now normally if I just write H1 and write my styles, it should affect the H1 tag, but let's do this. Color. Let's just do this first. Color red. Okay, it applied to the H1 element, then I just use P, then apply that same color red. It also applied. Oh, it's going to apply to all the P on the page. So, but the problem now is this is actually redundant, and our coding calls for DRY principle. So do not repeat yourself. So basically, what we want to do here is to use a group selector. Since the same style applies to multiple selectors, we just have to use the group selector and tell it that okay, apply that style to this selector. So I just use h1 dash comma p. So comma is what you just use to indicate that okay, apply this style in this block to the h1 element or the p element. No, let me not say element, the h1 selector, because this can actually this stuff here as selector, so it doesn't necessarily need to be an element. You could actually apply the same style to different selectors. So I could just bring something like class heading, for example. Now sorry, class heading, then I put that selector here, comma, to indicate that okay, there's another one here. Apply the style. So just do this. So whatever style is within this curly braces, this block, to apply it to this selector and this selector. I hope you guys are following. So let's just say okay, let me just save this first. As you can see, there is nothing here. So this, let me just put the color attributes and set it to okay, red. Cool. Then apply. Let me just use font size. Let's just say 100 pixels, and I saved. Cool. As you can see, yeah, this one is very big. Okay, as you can see, apply this stuff now to both the H1 elements and all P elements in the page. That's why this one up here is actually big too. If not, it's not actually supposed to be. But we can actually say, okay, we want this P. We don't want it to apply to all P elements. We want just this P element. And what makes this P element different from the others? It has a class of what? Heading. So there are different ways to do that. We could actually say P dot heading, right? This is also another selector. So as you can see, that style doesn't apply to this top anymore. So basically what we're telling it, okay, CSS will look for element that has h1 tag and look for the one that has a p tag, but there should be a class called heading inside. In the same way, we could actually use something, we could actually use, okay, p hash, let's see, head dash text. So basically what it means is, okay, look for a p element that has id is equals to head dash text. Basically that is what it means. So here we are telling it, look for a p element that has class is equals to heading. Like I said, dot, just remember this dot. Let me just write it here. Okay, dot is class, or dot class name means elements. Okay. Okay, so but in the case of id, you just hash. So hash id dash name means an element with id is equals to what? Id dash name. So cool. So as you guys can see, these are advanced selectors. There are a couple more that we're going to explore. So let me just respond to these people. Okay. This actually has a lot of selectors. A lot. Okay, yeah. So I would actually encourage you guys to, in your own spare time, just further your understanding of what we have learned here today. Okay, so I'm guessing that does it for advanced selectors. There are other selectors, like, I don't, because of time constraints, we can't cover everything. Like, we cannot cover everything. I beg. We would just have to cover the most important things, you understand, that are there. So let me just move into, I've already covered classes, right? So you guys understand classes. So let's move into another aspect, direct descendants. Now what this means is the direct child, like the HTML structure is actually a tree. So to explain, let me maximize the screen now. Like I said before, the HTML has, okay, let me just use code folding to make you guys understand it more. Just a feature of VS Code that folds code into just 2 lines or so. So this now, I'm folding the head and the body. Now, as I explained to you now, we have the HTML element, right? It contains 2 elements, the head element and the body element. You understand? So folding this in now, the structure of the website is already quite easy for you to understand. Now, inside these head elements now, we now have other elements. So for example now, this meta tag is, no, let me not use this one, let me use elements in the body, for example. Now this body, for example, you would say this body now is a direct descendant of HTML because it is a direct child. After the HTML element, it is the next one. Like, there is nothing containing the body. The body is a direct descendant, or a child, a direct child of HTML element. Now inside this body we'll have div. This div now is a direct descendant of the body element. You understand? This P now is a direct descendant of div, but it is not a direct descendant of body. It is a direct descendant of div. So you can just say it is the grandchild of body element. So that basically what we are looking for, direct descendants are direct children of a particular element. So it's a type of selector. Okay, for example now, we want to I will remove all styles. Let's say we want to style our CSS in this way. Okay, look for p tags that are direct descendants of div. This is the selector we use for that. Let me just go back to the way we were before. Okay, let me remove all of these styles. Okay, now to do that, we want to say, okay, CSS will look for p tag, but they should be direct descendants of div. We just write div first, and this, then p. Understand? So div, basically what the selector says, okay, the p should be a direct descendant of div. Then apply these styles to it. So let me just, which styles am I going to apply? Okay, let's say background color should be red. So as you can see, it applied it to this, just this two. This element here is also a p element, understand? But it didn't apply the style to this because it is not a direct descendant of any div at all. Now to make you understand that, let me just come here. That p tag, now I'm going to take it, let me cut it out, then I'll put inside a div element. After saving, it should have the same style. So you see, it now has the same style. So direct descendant is a way of telling code that, okay, this element now I want to style. Let it be a direct descendant of so and so. If it is, then apply the style to it. If it's not, don't apply the style. So if we had other p tags that are not direct descendants of any type of div, then it won't work. Now notice you can actually have selectors are actually quite how do I put it? They are quite flexible. You can actually have other selectors. So let's say type, or let's say it has okay, let's just say the element of, instead of div we just say hash name. So basically it's look for any element. It doesn't have to be div. Look for any element that has id is equals to name, and look for its p tag that is a direct descendant of it. So if we have multiple p tags that are direct descendants of that particular element, apply this style to them. That is basically what this means. So like I said, selectors are flexible. You could have something else, maybe class, that one, but there's no point. Let's say type is equals to, type is equals to checkbox, something like that. This is the type of input field. So we are looking for this attribute. This is the attribute selector as I told you guys. So we are using this to do it. Well, I guess that is it for direct descendants. Okay. Yeah, cool. Let me just arrange this stuff and see the ones that I have not covered. Okay, I don't think we have enough time to cover this post, except our leader, Kelly, Alpha. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Kelly. Yeah, so will you be able to take CSS blend box? Let me cover the remaining two.
Time is already almost 11:34. Okay.
Huh?
I think maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday.
Okay.
We could include that tomorrow before we start off.
Okay. Let me just carry on. You guys give me a moment. Okay, so let's just go back to our page. Okay, let me just clean this code. Okay, now let's just define a basic. I think we are going to do something before we go, something tangible that we can actually have to show for it. Okay, well, I think we have already covered type selectors. Yeah. So okay, let me just explain. This this stuff that we did before, like we just did P, and this is a type selector. So it selects element of a particular type and applies the styles there to it. Okay, so it looks for the type of element P and applies the styles that we want into that particular type of element. So for mobile responsiveness now, we use something called media queries. Now I would only be able to show you guys, sorry, this is how we use media queries at media. That is it. Okay, so now CSS is actually quite versatile when it comes to media queries, but I will show you guys what I mean. Okay, so the media, this at media now, as that you're seeing, is actually a media query. So we can actually define conditions here for it to show. So from let's say we wanted a particular style to apply to an element from mobile. Okay, let me just explain something real quick. Now, when designing a website, we normally there's actually a particular how do I put it, preferred way to build a website. They call them mobile first design. So you design a website first for mobile devices, then you now go to desktop and start making it look good for desktop. But most people don't actually, some people, let me not say most, some people don't actually do that. They first design for desktop, then they will now start customizing it for mobile. Now that is where media queries come in. Media queries allows you to apply different styles for different conditions. So that those conditions could actually be let's say the screen size, for example. So the screen size for a desktop is not the same as screen size for mobile devices. Now mobile devices could have maybe a maximum width of, let's say, I'm just estimating here, let's say 500 pixels or so, but for example now my own screen now is 1600 by 900. The width of the screen should easily span more than 1024 pixels or so. So how we write media query is this. Okay, before we do that, let me just put in some HTML to demonstrate certain things to you guys. Okay, let's just say we have a P here. Let's just have hello world inside. Right, cool. Okay, then here let's just come to the top. Put that we are using the P selector. So this is the type selector for P. Then we just write the color. Let the color be, well, our favorite color, red. Cool. Now the color of this text is red, right? Let me just also increase the font size to, let's just increase the font size so something big, 100 pixels. So yeah, hello world. But then again, we want let's say we wanted to apply a different set of styles when we are in mobile view. That is where media query is actually coming. So the media query for adding mobile style is, you do at media, then you write only screen, and then you just use this. Now inside this place now you have to put your conditions. That is the conditions for, let me just specify something. Now the styles are going to be inside here. So inside this bracket, we are going to put the conditions for our style actually applying to the page. So the condition I want to use here, let's say it's a mobile device. Now we wanted the condition to be something like maximum width. I think that one would be the most ideal. Like mobile devices have a maximum width of something. So let's just say max width. And the max width will be let me just say 400 pixels. But there might not be enough, but I think it's cool. So max width 400 pixels. Now, any styles you put inside here should affect the mobile view. So the first style I just want to apply is color. I will just say color should be blue. Okay, there's an error here. Why is it showing me an error here? Expected CSS. Expected. Okay, it's a big problem. Okay, yeah, I made a mistake. Yeah. So the styles now that I'm going to put, no right style inside you get the element. So the same way, like you create a scope for your style. So this style now, let me just put it here, but instead I change the color to something like blue. I've saved it, but after reloading, the page is still showing the red. Right, so let's just enter the mobile view. How we do that is just press. Wait, let me just show you guys how I did that. Although I'm used to use the shortcuts, just go to inspect. Right, click on your page, go to inspect, then just select the mobile. Voila! And as you can see, our text color has really changed too. And just look at this. They wrote 400 with 712. So let me just expand this width now. So you see, immediately I expanded it to 410. The style disappeared. Now let me put it back. 400. The style became blue. Hello, are you guys seeing this? Can anybody please respond?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, what I wanted to demonstrate was this. So immediately the width of that device changed. You understand? It's the style, a different style applied. So that is actually what media query does. There are several. I can't remember all of them now, but there are several devices. And this stuff now, well, there's a pattern to it, but you have to learn. Like there are other media devices apart from mobile phones. We have screen readers. So technically, you could probably write some styles that will apply on screen readers and some other stuff. So like this now, we said only screen. So this style here should only show for devices with screen, and the maximum width of that screen should be max width. So let's say we wanted to add, let's reason in the same way, we wanted to add styles for, let's say, laptop devices or large devices. Instead of max width here, can anybody tell me what we are going to use instead? Yeah, hello, can anybody please answer? Okay, okay. Okay, so in order to answer that, let me just answer it myself. Instead of using maximum width, we are going to use minimum width to show that, okay, these styles should apply to any device that has at least this width. So okay, let me just use this responsive mode to look for it. I change this to, okay, it's not here, let me add some laptop devices here. Okay, laptop with HIDPR. Let me just add them. Okay, laptop with touch. Cool. So I come here now. I just choose laptop MDPI. So as you can see now, this laptop has 1280, right? Then let me just change it again to HID. Okay, 1440. So it's safe to say that the minimum. Okay, we just check. So it's safe to say that the minimum laptop screen width will be 1200 or so. So we can now set this to be min dash width to 1200 pixels. Like as we just, so these styles now would only apply to any device that has a minimum width of 1200 pixels. In other words, it will not apply to our mobile device. So for example, now let me just remove this and I comment this out. Okay, wait. Let me just confirm something real quick, please. I need you guys to respond. Do you guys know what commenting is? That is for, sorry, apart from script, I said you missed the first few classes, but in HTML they taught you guys about commenting, right? Yeah. Hello? Hello? Oh, can you guys hear me?
I can.
Okay, okay. Yeah. So basically, what it is when you comment out a particular portion of code, the program that interprets it ignores it, like as if it's not there. So that's what I did here. And the shortcut for doing that is, although on this editor shall, when you highlight what you want to comment out, you press Control plus, holding down Control, you use the button, this slash button. So that is the shortcut for commenting out your code. So here now, I just highlight them, I press Control and this. So it just includes, but without that shortcut, if you want to comment out CSS code, as you can see, just use slash star, then star slash. So anything you write in between here is automatically ignored by the CSS compiler, or should we call it transpiler, or whatever. So that is that. So this, let me just demonstrate what I just did here. We have only one active style here. The rest are commented out. It sets this particular property for only laptop devices. So let me make this color to be green. Cool. So here you see now. For a laptop device now, it showed this color as green. But if I were to reduce this size now to galaxy, here you see, no style applied at all, because the width of the galaxy is 360, so it doesn't meet this particular requirement. Okay, please, if you guys don't understand this mobile responsiveness ish, I can actually take it again. Okay, so we have covered mobile responsiveness. Basically, if you wanted to make your website mobile responsive, you just have to now use these styles and define the particular style. So majority of the things you would want to define is font size. For example, you see a lot of websites on their desktop view, that is laptop view, some text will actually be very very big, but you cannot actually afford that type of text on a mobile device. So you would have to reduce the font size of that particular element on a mobile device. So how you achieve that is you define a media query that applies to mobile devices and write your code, that is your mobile CSS there. It will now make the text now look very very good on mobile devices. And that is that. You could actually do it for tablets too. So I think in here itself we can even do you can actually do something like this. So let's say I wanted for devices that have at least 700 pixel width and highest 1000 pixel width. I'm just assuming that this condition now satisfies that of wait, okay, not like this. I think it's something like this. So we just define this. So this something like this now describe that okay, any device that passes this test, so at least a minimum width of 700, maximum width of 1000, apply this tag to it. So that is it for mobile responsiveness. Okay, another thing now we are going to do is CSS Flexbox. That will be the last topic for today, since we have just 10 minutes left. Now, CSS Flexbox is, I'm just going to explain. CSS Flexbox is very very useful. There are two parts of CSS that were introduced. I think they were introduced in CSS 3, and they are very very useful. That is Flexbox and Grid. Flexbox and Grid. Now, I would only be explaining the basics of CSS Flexbox. So let's just construct a basic structure here now for HTML. Let's just say inside this div now. Okay, yeah. This will actually be good. Inside this div now we have let's just say this. Okay, let me just duplicate this a bunch of times. So okay, so first of all, I want okay, I don't, let me not even do anything. Normally, like I did before, if you wanted these elements now, they are block level elements. So let me just demonstrate that. If you click this, sorry, let's remove this multi-view. If you click this now, so you see, each p tag is occupying the entirety of the width. If you wanted to make them to not be like that, you could just come then and we write our own style here. Let me just put inside the elements. We just say okay, display, set the display property something like inline text, and it should work. Let me just leave that one for now. So if you wanted to use CSS Flexbox, basically what Flexbox does is it gives us superpowers that allows us to define the layout for our page. It enables us to define really complex layouts, and not just the layout, how those layouts behave on different screen sizes. So for example, let me just take this now. We have a div now with p elements inside, but all of them now are just, they are block level elements. They are just under each other. So what we are going to do is, let's just style that div element now. Div elements, cool. Now the style we are going to put here now is, okay, let's first of all, the first thing to do is to set the display property to flex. Now let me save that. Now notice that as I save that, immediately I save that, all this thing just, the whole inline whatever just collapsed and disappeared. Everything just came together. Wait, first of all, in order to show this thing very well, let me style our p tag first. Let's just say background color should be red. Okay, then let's just say the width is no, not width, sorry, margin. Let's just define margin so they don't touch each other too much. 5 pixels. Okay, yeah, so once we decide to use this display flex property on the div, it ensures that every single element that is contained inside it is now inline, an inline element. Now there are various properties that we can use in a div, in a flexbox element. For example, let me just show you guys something real quick. Wait, I think a full page would be desired for this. Okay, look at this now. This is the div element. You grab, this is the div element now, and it contains 4p elements. So what if we wanted to make them now, wanted to make them to be at the center? We use a property called justify content. So let's just say wanted this to be center. Oh, sorry, center. So you see, all of them now came to the center. Every single thing. Now, this property now is not the only one that we can use. For example, now, okay, let me just define something before we do more. Now, this is the div element. Now, in Flexbox, there are several positions like this. Wait, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but just imagine this box now because it's going to disappear. Now, this point now at that div is the start position. This is the center position. This is the end. So, for example, now if we did something like justify content, just the end, it will go to the end of the flex box. You understand? Which is this. Then if we do something like start, and it still goes there. Well, it's not supposed to do this. It's supposed to go to the start position and the end position. Okay, now there are other properties that we can use. You can just use space between, and as you can see, this is what it did. So it makes sure that it occupies the whole space on that flex box, giving them space in between. Then if we use space around now, it will add space between this and this edge of the box. Let me just demonstrate that to you. Space around. So you see, it's a bit like space between, but it makes sure that the element is not touching the edge of the box too much. Then if we use space evenly, but it's a lot like that, but it's a lot like it. So well, what we want to use here is, okay, let's just use let's just use space between. No, space around. I like that one. Okay, so now there are other properties we could use. There's also the align. We use that one to align the content, whether maybe to the center or the flex, or you won't actually be able to see it now. If the div was higher, okay, let me set the width of this. First of all, let me set the background property so the div will actually be visible. Background color, let's say it's something like green. Cool. So then we now set the width to, let's say, 50%. Okay. Okay, not width, sorry, height. How do I keep making this mistake? The height property, 50%, which is not desirable. Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, that means this P element here, I have to set the height. See, 20%. Okay, so okay, well, there is also another flexbox property that we can use. It is wrap. Okay, flex dash wrap. Okay, so we can actually use this to define how the element behaves when the box is too small to box house them. Now this is what I mean. If I reduce this now, okay, let's just keep reducing it and watch what happens. So you see, did you see that? Now that is the wrap property in action. When the box gets too small, let's say it's this now, you don't really need to have, if you write a flex box on desktop, then on a mobile view you don't actually need to write too much mobile optimization code, because once it gets to mobile, that is once the box becomes small enough in weight, it automatically moves the element below, and as you can see, the element is coming down until it just decided the best way for that element to show. We didn't have to define, okay, when the weight is like this, there should be only two on a row or two on a column. No, it automatically and smartly knows how to do that for us. We could also, if you had set it to something like no wrap now, then we'll disable that wrap property. So if we reduce it, it ain't gonna wrap. Like, it doesn't look good, which is not what we want. We want it to wrap. Okay, so, and there's also another property, for example, flex direction. Flex direction now allows us to do something like this. You can now set how you want it to display. Now this is the flex direction being a row property. It is set by default. Once you set this display flex, it sets the flex direction to row by default, but it's not always what we want. We might also want our display to be in a column, so we just set the flex direction property to column. And look at that, hello world starting it. So if we now set something like column dash reverse, watch what happens. Hello world comes to the bottom, you see. And so the same thing, if we set it to row, it becomes a row property. But if we set it to row dash reverse, hello world will come to the last. part of it, and you can see, isn't that lovely? I think we've actually done a very good job today. So time is almost, well, it's after 12, so I guess that is the ending of this class. If you guys have any other question, please let me know. Let me just take them now before we leave. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
For me, I don't.
Okay. That means you understand everything we did today now. If I tell you to
Yeah,
apply them, you'll be able to do that.
I should be able to.
Okay, that's very good. Quite encouraging too. So we are going to be putting these videos on our, I don't know, it's a single video, they might divide it into two. We're going to be putting it on our YouTube channel, so in case you guys want to. And I guess you guys are in the DSC group, so if you have any other questions, please, 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 and please feel free to ask. We are all here to encourage one another and learn from one another. So I would hand over to my superintendent, um, Kelly. So Kelly, please, over to you.
Alright, Uchi, thank you very much for your time and making CSS look super cool. So
Eh,
I think that's all for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So
okay.
we can all
Okay.
leave the classroom right now.
Okay, that's the end of
And
today's
thanks
class.
everyone for coming. Thank you. Let's see. Thank you, Kelechi. Thank you, Chikaka. Yeah. Thanks a lot. See you guys tomorrow.